Here we are again with another vehicle where another shop has looked at it and the results are crazy. Let's get started. Oh look, a broken Toyota. 1% of the time it does happen. And unfortunately, this is that 1% of the time that a Toyota actually breaks. This has been to another shop. The customer got an estimate and also a game plan to repair what was wrong. And what's so strange about this situation, not necessarily the diagnosis. The previous shop actually got the diagnosis correct. It was their plan of action that was really strange. That's why this customer, who has normally done business with us here, just happened this was local and a little easier, said, oh, you know what, I'm going to pull my truck out of the shop and take it to the car wizard. I just don't understand what your thinking is here, so I'm going to get a second opinion and very likely get it fixed at Omega. So, see you later, guy. This is a 2013 Toyota Tacoma with the 2.7 inline four-cylinder, which is not a very problematic engine, but this one unfortunately has a blown head gasket. The customer noticed it was starting to get hot and it would boil over, and they took it to a shop local to them and they confirmed that it was a blown head gasket. We also double and triple confirmed, but we went a little deeper this time. But before we dive into the numbers and dive into all the cost involved and everything, let's go ahead and take a look around this vehicle. The customer that owns this truck actually uses it for business purposes. It was causing issues with him getting the job done. That's why it's here. It's in fairly good condition. It has 200 and something thousand miles. Mrs. Wizard will show you here in a minute exactly how many, but quite a lot. But the front end, as you can see, is in decent shape. For the miles, everything looks really nice. It's not caved in or beat up. It does have this TSS Sport Series. I've actually not heard of that on a Toyota truck. You guys can let me know in the comments. What is that? What does that entail? Here we can see it's the pre-runner, which is a two-wheel drive, SR5, Toyota Tacoma. The other side is equally nice. It is in very good shape. Let's go ahead and jump under the hood. Here is our venerable 2.7 liter four-cylinder, which is pretty big for a four-cylinder. Actually, very big. There's not too many four-cylinders on the planet that are that large. You can get larger than that when you get into industrial or commercial engines, but for a car or a truck, that's a pretty good size. They got low-down torque, not so much a high-end horsepower, but they're a very good workhorse motor. This one, unfortunately, has some issues going on with it overheating. We'll dive in deep here in a minute, but just showing you under the hood, it's dusty, it's dirty, it's been used for work, and once we get the head gasket situation solved, it'll have a lot more life left in it, many more miles to go. Let's go let Mrs. Wizard give you guys a tour of the interior.
There we go, ladies and gents, 213,776 miles. So yes, Wizard's right, it does have over 200,000 miles, and it actually is going to present very nice. It is in really good condition. And as you look, hey look, there are warning lights on there for a Toyota. They illuminate them just when you're in the accessory mode. And in this case, it didn't actually illuminate any of them for the customer, because if you look, none of those lights actually say engine getting hot. But that needle in the upper right-hand corner, that thing would have been climbing, and as that engine got warmer and warmer. As you look at our dash, it's in really good condition. Oh, we can see a little bit of a crack there. Okay, not just a little bit of a crack. He migrates and goes all the way across. So yes, definitely got a problem with the windshield, but that's a simple solution and doesn't affect the drivability of the car really at all. As we move, you'll see we've got gray, and more gray in here, but it's in really nice condition. No scratches, no marks. As we move down, you'll see that they are a coffee drinker, which I definitely do appreciate. You'll see that it is an automatic and that they have 5 wood screws in their little cubby there. Not so sure why they would have 5 wood screws, but nonetheless, that's what's there. As we move down, we have one cup holder. Not so sure why they didn't put another one there with that big open space, but that's what it is. And it's got some nice kind of a silver accented pattern there as well. As we look at the seat, there's a few little spots on there, but just something that, good fashioned cleaning couldn't clean up. We've got a nice interesting pattern on the center section. Then it is a fabric material, but it is in really good shape. There's no tears, so it's easy to get cleaned up quite nicely. As we move to our door panel, you'll see that we have dark charcoal and light on the bottom side. But again, nothing is broken. We can see on our map holder over there, there we go, got a little cup holder going on over there, but nothing is broken, nothing is chipped, no holes in anything, nothing being held together by one of those wood screws. As we move to our back seat, yes, that is a door. This is a 4-door truck, so we have a full back seat back here. So this would be a really good car to have for the family. And as you can see, maybe a few marks on that seat again, but this is a work truck and it has 200,000 miles on it and it's 10 years old. So I would imagine there to be a few issues on the fabric. But again, there's no tears, no rips. Move to our headliner, great shape, no Cheeto fingers, got a few little maybe marks or scuffs up there, but nothing again. A little bit of elbow grease could get rid of all of that. And Toyota seems to like putting in sunglasses holders. We've got one here and one here. Not so sure why we need to have two, but that's what we have. It's interesting that they have two sunglasses holder and they do not have an automatic garage door spot there, so you can, program in your garage door. Interesting. Back at our steering wheel, we're almost done. Yes, and they've added a few buttons onto here. And it looks like there could have been a few other buttons added there, but they don't have that there. They just left it as a big blank spot. So I wonder what was missing from there. Maybe you guys could let us know in the comments what could have been added on the steering wheel that this person did not get in their package. So I'm curious what this looks like on the underneath. Let's get this up in the air.
Although it does have a blown head gasket, there's luckily not a whole lot leaking or other things going on under here. Let's take a look and see. Almost 220,000 miles, Toyota Tacoma. What do we got underneath? Here's our radiator condenser area. No leaks going on there. You can see some drips going on with some water. That's from us doing some testing, pressure testing the cooling system. That's not from it leaking. But the oil pan is nice and dry. Everything up in there, the AC compressor, the steering rack. Nothing serious going on there. I do see a little seepage going on this boot. I do not believe that's coming from inside the rack. Brake pads are about 10% remaining, maybe even a little less than that, so we'll definitely need to let the customer know about that. Sway bar link is good. Nothing loose. The strut is dry. Sway bar is not loose. Strut is dry, nothing loose there, and 10% on the brakes. One nice thing about having a 4-cylinder I really like is access. You can see on both sides of the engine, if you need to work on anything, it's really easy to get to it. It makes living with the vehicle a lot less stressful. Here's our transmission. The pan is nice and dry. It shifts just fine. There's no issues there. Here's looks like a U-joint was replaced not too long ago. I do see that this mount is a little bit cracked and getting close to touching right there, so we may look into replacing that rear transmission mount. We can see some other work has been done as well. We see a new carrier support bearing for the drive shaft. We also see a new joint there as well. Again, no serious leaks or anything going on. Here's our fuel tank. Another new U-joint. So the drive line has been serviced. No leaks going on here at the rear differential. Danielson has removed this little inspection cover on the rear drum brakes and saw that they are getting pretty thin, so we're going to be doing shoes and drums in the back. Shock is nice and dry. The shock is dry here as well. Nothing loose. Here's our spare tire, and I can push on it and feel that it's kind of low, so we will definitely be putting some air into that. Most people don't check that. Looks good under here, no serious rust issues going on the frame or anything like that, so let's get this thing on the ground. So how do you know that you have a blown head gasket? There's several different ways. One of them is a combustion gas tester, which actually fits, it's like a tube of a blue colored solution that actually fits over the radiator where the cap goes. You take the cap off and set it on top of there. And then you start the engine, and any kind of gases that come out of that will pass through that fluid. And if it's combustion gases, the blue fluid will turn green, just like green antifreeze. And you will know right away it is a blown head gasket. This one did fail. It turned green really fast. We also just put a yellow funnel, connected it to the radiator neck, started the engine and give it a few little revs, and coolant will just spray like a geyser. That's a good sign as well. Another thing Danielson did is connect a cooling system pressure tester to this, which we have on our Amazon affiliates link. We didn't pump it up with pressure though. All we did was start the engine. There should not be any pressure building when it's cold, only when the engine starts to warm up. But instantly it went to 5, 10, and we just turned it off because it's building pressure really fast. You can visibly see bubbles coming out when I had the yellow funnel on, and you can smell the bubbles. It smells like exhaust. It smells like crankcase fumes. It smells really bad. Luckily, on this engine, coolant did not get into the bottom end. The oil that's in the crankcase is still clean. There's no water. It's not milky, like a milkshake. It's not all mixed up inside of there. So we got lucky with it not contaminating the bottom end. One thing you can check just driving the vehicle if you're suspicious of a blown head gasket is sitting at idle. It really won't do a whole lot with your temperature gauge. That's where you need to be watching, is your temperature gauge. But when you get it up on the highway, the temperature will just climb and keep going. It will not be able to cool itself off. It's filling the cooling system with gas bubbles basically, and it's very inefficient at cooling the engine compared to the actual liquid coolant. Eventually it will actually build up too much pressure and it'll just spew antifreeze and gases all over the place, and it'll be on the side of the road with steam and all kinds of things going on. But it's a telltale sign if that happens that you need to get it to a shop and at least get it checked out to confirm what's going on. Don't do this for too long and don't let it get very hot. You can warp the head. Speaking of overheating, I contacted Jared from the Questionable Garage. You guys watch his videos, a lot of you do. It's really informative content. He used to be a Toyota certified technician, a master technician for Toyota dealerships. He is a Toyota guru. And I asked him, is this common? Did this have a blown head gasket on the 2.7? He said, no, not really, but when it happens, it's usually because the water pump failed and they just let it run hot and they overheated it and blew the head gasket. So I don't know if that's the case here. It very likely is. But this is where it gets really strange. We did confirm that it has a blown head gasket. The previous shop did as well. They were correct in their assumption or their diagnosis that it does have a blown head gasket. But instead of repairing the head gasket, they quoted this customer a used engine for $9,000. Just take this engine out, throw it away, put in a used salvage yard engine and call it a day. And the customer was like, why are we not repairing the issue? The engine's fine. Why are we throwing my engine away? The concern was probably because coolant could have gotten in the bottom end, but easy testing can check that. We drained the oil on this and there's not a drop of water nowhere. It's good, clean oil. I needed to weigh all my options. We know that the head gasket or something's blown in here. And in the back of my mind, what if I quote a head gasket? I take this all apart and find out it's got a cracked head. Then we could be up another $1,000 for a head. I gave the customer 3 options. And the third option really kind of baffled me as well. It didn't baffle Jared from Questionable Garage, but the first option, we're going to do the head gasket. It's going to cost $6,000. I'll let that sink in for a minute, guys. And it really kind of freaked me out as well. It's like, what kind of head gasket job costs $6,000? I've done so many head gaskets before that were 3 or 4. Why is it 6? But I'll talk about that here in a minute. The second option, if we get in here and the cylinder head is the issue, it's cracked, it'll be an additional $800 to $1,000 on top of the $6,000. So we could approach $7,000 if the head is bad. The third option, I called to see if we could get a reman engine. It could be that another $1,000 or $2, we can just replace the whole engine. Not with a used salvage yard engine with questionable history, but a reman engine with a warranty. We called Powertrain Products, we called Jasper, we called a few other places to see what can we do with a reman price on one of these 2.7 engines, and their answer all across the board was, we don't sell those. They don't fail. There's no cores. There's nothing to work with here. You cannot buy a reman 2.7. We will not sell you one today because We don't have any. I was like, well, then maybe that makes sense why this last shop tried to give them a used engine, because there's not really that much of an option. But anyways, that's a last case resort, if that tends to be, and that could be 8 or 9 grand with a used engine. I could see that. That's not overpriced, really. That's probably about what it would be. Now let's kind of handle the question of why does it cost 6 grand for a head gasket? Well, when I calculated up head bolts, head gasket, intake gasket, exhaust gasket, timing chains, because I'm not putting your old timing chains back on, the tensioners, the guides, the seals, getting the head resurfaced, which is a few $100s by itself, belts, tensioners, idlers, things like that, that's got age on them. I'm not putting the old ones back on. And of course, a water pump, which very likely started this. Fluids, oil, antifreeze, all these things. When they add them all up, it was almost $2,000 just for the parts. We haven't even taken a single bolt off yet to charge labor. We're just talking about the parts. Is $2,000. Some of these parts, some of the timing chain kits, $500, $600, $700, depending on which level you want. The head gasket kit was $500. It adds up fast. The parts are not cheap on these engines, I think because they're not that common to fail. I was surprised how much the parts were. But then there was something else that surprised me even more. In my mind, I was thinking this is an 8-hour job or something like that. The book probably quotes around there. Some of the other jobs I've done recently, head jobs, were 8, 10, 12 hours. The Mazda CX-9 that you guys just saw a video on was 17 or 18 hours. This one, in the book, in the labor manual, is actually higher than that. It is a full 20 hours. Even Jared from Questionable Garage said, I don't understand why it's that high, but he says, however, I do know that this isn't one of the jobs you can zip through really fast. This isn't a zip, zip, zip and get it done. It takes a little bit longer. Let's take a look at the book time itself. Factory dealership time, what the dealer would pay for warranty work or something, is 14 hours. But we are not a dealership and we're not doing warranty work. We're doing independent shop work, which clearly states 18 hours for certain features or other features, which this one has 20 full hours. So when you're going into a vehicle, you're not sure what you're going to find out. We may get this apart and the head is bad or something else is wrong. You don't cut yourself short on hours and then get yourself in trouble. As a businessman, that will be a recipe for bankruptcy, and that's foolish. However, being that I know that it has a head gasket that's blown, all these things are going to add up. It's going to be at least 15 hours. Very likely we could hit the 20-hour mark. We'll have to see how it goes. But I have to quote what I see in the data. With the shop rate we have, plus the 20 hours, is over $3,500. Then, the $2,000 you get here for the parts and sales tax and all the things add up, and you've met or exceeded $6,000. Is it worth it? 15 years ago, probably not. But today, absolutely it's worth it. Danielson actually made a comment, you could pull the motor out of this truck and throw it in the trash, and the truck is probably still worth $10,000. We looked on Facebook Marketplace, and Tacomas of this year model, even a little bit less miles, that are running perfectly fine, $25,000 to $30,000. Toyotas really hold their value. So even if it was 10 grand to fix this, it's still absolutely worth it. You might ask the question, at that price, why don't we just go ahead and put a new engine? Well, like I just mentioned, there are no reman engines out there. We did call the Toyota dealership, and they will sell the short block, which is no cylinder head, just the block and the pistons and things together. It was almost $3,000 just for the short block. And then you add a head and accessories and all those different things that go along with it, and you could be at $4,000 or $5,000 really easy, not including labor. It could very likely be $9,000 or $10,000 for a new engine. It's possible we could get this one fixed for almost half that. That's probably the route that I would take. The bottom end on this engine, everything's good on it, should go another 150,000 miles or more. We know Toyotas are known for going 400 or more thousand miles. And just in case you think, wow, that price is high, Wizard, for that head gasket, Just keep in mind the last shop that quoted him to do this job quoted about the same thing, because the customer said, well, yeah, that's about what the last shop said. We got all the parts ordered. We're going to start tearing into this thing, and as soon as we get it done, the customer will have their truck back and they can get back to work with the business they use this truck for. If you're curious what kind of tools we use or going to use on this or any other car in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button, because Mrs. Wizard's actually been working on the bus all day today, which means there's a bus video in the works. Thanks for watching.